What brings you to the World Government Summit?
Yeah, well, in short, of course, it's an invitation. They were all invited here, but it is pretty spectacular, I have to say. The people that you meet here, for us, there's a special occasion because we also just announced flying to Dubai. We will start our operations to Dubai as of October. So it's a great way also to meet clients, to meet, of course, with travel agencies, to meet with lots of people that will use our flights. But the World Government Summit in itself is just, I find it spectacular what they brought together here.
You're talking about opening up in the region. You're obviously also in the midst of being purchased. How's that deal going?
Yeah, so good, I think, in essence, right, and we expect to get regulatory approval in the second half of the year. Look, people that will know me a bit better than you do know that I'm always a bit impatient, so it's a slow process. I think Europe as a whole and the European Commission really, they do take their time, but we do expect in the second half of this year to get approval.
From the European Commission's perspective, obviously they've got to do their due diligence and all the usual compliance elements. But from your own perspective, with your business solely in mind, would a kind of a loosening or relaxing of some of the procedural elements help you and certainly other businesses with transitions?
Yeah, I'm not even sure whether it's loosening. I'm very okay with, of course, people following indeed a due diligence process. That's not a problem. I think speed, right? And speed, of course, is of the essence, certainly for businesses. And so now we cannot proceed with many things that we would like to proceed on. And we would like to have access to, for instance, joint ventures with Delta and Air France KLM and right, other airlines in the world. And that is now being held back. So, of course, the faster we can move, the more benefits we can immediately give to consumers, right? Bring to consumers. And that is what we, in the end, are in business for. And that is a bit paused at the moment. So yes, absolutely, the faster, the better.
And talk about speed, this region's growing. You're announcing new deals to come to the region. How important is the Middle East in your future plans? And also looking at the current geopolitical situation, how much is that impacting your desire for growth?
Yeah, no, very much. I mean, and again, you can see it, you can feel it always here, right? I mean, I've lived in the region for a couple of years, and it's that, I think it's a combination of almost social ambition levels, and then, of course, having the resources, but also the vision very much to drive towards the execution on that vision. So I'm always, impressed with what we see in the region here. We have indeed announced Dubai. We have recently started flying to Tel Aviv. We have increased our flights into Beirut, and hopefully really more to come. I don't think that this is the last that you'll see from us in the region.
Talking about the region, we've been discussing AI. It's been a hot topic here today at the World Government Summit. How do you see AI and its role in airlines, not just yours, but the industry moving forward?
Yeah, so look, it's not just a buzzword, but I do think we spent quite some time with my executive team last year really figuring out what is this, right? Where can we take this? Lots of external people coming into our executive team and really talking about the possibilities. We've identified for ourselves at least 5 big bets, as we call them, 5 AI bets. And again, very much, I think, towards the consumer, right? How can a consumer benefit from all of this? So disruption management. Hey, we're Scandinavian Airlines, so occasionally we get hit by real snowstorms, right? Something that you really won't experience here. And then, let's say, right, 100 cancellations a day, got aircraft, crew, pilots, everything all over the place. How do you put that puzzle back together, for instance? And we believe that AI will work through those variables infinitely better than a human being can, right? Or than a group of human beings. So that is, for instance, one of those big bets. How do we deal with disruption management? And when you have everything up in the air, and how can you put it back together?
So you see AI more functionally in terms of troubleshooting and helping from a logistical and management perspective rather than operationally with regards to, I know regionally they're looking at flying taxis and other things. We're quite some time away from planes flying themselves.
No, look, let's in a way run, right, already before we can really do all sorts of spectacular other things. Some of walking, I think, is behind us. I think we're really going now into a phase of running. But we do all sorts of things, but indeed, autonomous flying, stand corrected, but I don't think we'll see this on big aircrafts, right, the ones that we're using in my professional lifetime. I think that's going to take a while. But we can do so much, right? It's better forecasting, whether that is in revenue management, but even water forecasting, right? Water management and waste management on board of an aircraft. How do you better forecast that, which brings weight down, which of course then brings fuel prices or fuel down, fuel usage down. And so one of the big bets is actually that AI will program for us, right? How can you do coding and programming, the easiest levels of programming and coding already through AI rather than having people do it for you. So yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunities really in the business, and many of them will be supporting customers, like that disruption management, for instance.
So it sounds like AI, from your perspective, is going to help from a functionality perspective, efficiencies, helping your performance and continuing to improve, but also perhaps helping the bottom line from a financial perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, disruption management is, of course, number one. It is a disruptor for our passengers, but also for ourselves, right? When you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of passengers out of place and all those variables that I mentioned before, aircraft, crew, pilots everywhere, how do you put that piece together, that puzzle back together more quickly, more efficiently? That will ultimately drive, right, benefits for us as well on our bottom line, right? Fewer passengers in hotels, passengers on their way again, crew in the right position, aircraft the next day already in the next position rather than maybe 2-3 days. That is, of course, a benefit to us. So yeah, no, we're quite hopeful, but I am, I think, in my drive with my executive team, quite practical, right? It just needs to be, how can we solve current problems that we collectively as human beings aren't smart enough to solve, and can we then, through the use of AI, solve our problems?
Talking about your executive team, obviously we mentioned the fact you're in the process of being sold. You know, your performance generally has been exceptional. Where do you see the future for your airline?
Yeah, no, I actually, and we've been saying this all along in Scandinavia, of course, as well, because there is some question mark around, well, what will happen to the brand? Look, the brand will absolutely survive this. The brand will be very strong. When you look at the Air France KLM growth potential, very limited in their hubs, and you could even argue that KLM and Amsterdam Schiphol Airport is completely full to capacity. So I believe that for Scandinavia as a whole, Copenhagen as our main hub, but certainly SAS then as an airline within the group, I believe there will be real growth potential, and you'll see more of SAS in the future than what you're seeing today.
Talk about very positive things in the future and the growth, but what challenges may, not just your airline, but airlines in general face in the coming years? Obviously we talked earlier about the regional instability, the question marks, certain European carriers perhaps postponing or temporarily cancelling flights. What do you think are going to be the kind of 4 things we need to watch for in the coming 2 years from a general airline perspective?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's the airline business. Things happen, right? I'm now 26 years, I think, in this industry, and I've had my fair share of SARS and MERS and right, financial crisis, and of course COVID. So something will always happen, and it will always be something that you don't expect, right? But the usual suspects: currency fluctuations, oil, right, fuel prices. We were of course glued to our monitors this week as well, and to the news. What is happening in the region, what is happening, of course, in the relationships between the United States and Iran, and therewith, right, what kind of impact on fuel will that have? And then there's always demand as a whole, right? I mean, we've seen it in COVID. Without demand, you can't do anything, right? No, really. So there will always be, things happening in the world, and I'm on purpose being vague here because we don't even know what it is, right? So, I mean, it's only 6 years ago that we shut airspace completely for COVID. That's not a long time ago, right? So something will inevitably happen. And then, I think there's opportunities as well. Further rounds of consolidation in Europe, definitely. AI, as we've discussed, I think plenty of ground for optimism as well. They're about how can it drive further margin expansion for our businesses.
And finally, of course, we're here at the World Government Summit. We've got European leaders from across the world. What's your message to them over the next couple of days?
Yeah, I think maybe not so much for them, because I think over here, once more, I really, there's always a different buzz. There's a different speed here anyway. But to Europe, I am definitely in the camp of Europe needs to move faster, it needs to have more of a vision. I'm not overly critical in the sense that everything is bad in Europe, but clearly really it isn't. But I think lowering the red tape, lowering requirements, regulatory requirements, speed back in the game, and maybe a bit more of a, I don't know whether it's fascination for, whether it's appreciation of, but entrepreneurs, right, people that really create and really drive something. I do find the hunger in this part of the world always exciting, and I think Europe has lost or missed out on some of that.
And perhaps these couple of days is a chance to rediscover it. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Much appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.